We're here. The final frontier. After 2 years of qualifying and after 4 weeks of relentless action, a tournament that started with 53 nations has now whittled down to 2. And it's the dream final. The final everyone wanted. The 2 best teams on the continent, the 2 most powerful teams on the continent, 2 of the most powerful stories on the continent colliding in Rabat. For one, it's a hero's farewell. It's another shot at immortality, another shot at history, and to solidify themselves truly as part of the table of African greats. For others, it is the end of a 50-year odyssey. Their investment and at times controversial political lobbying of the top dogs of African football, all of that has built to this moment. And all of it has come down to this. Everything they've done, everything they've built, everything they've developed has come down to this one specific game. Hi, I'm the Football Otaku, and welcome to my long-awaited preview of the 2025 Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations final. It's the game we've all been waiting for. It's the dream final. It's the final we all wanted. It's the final that we felt we all dreamed of, and now it's finally here. And of course, if you guys, thank you for rocking with me throughout this entire competition, following me throughout the tournament, throughout all of these videos. I mean, it's been an absolute slog, but now finally for one last time I can preview a game in this competition. If of course you're loving the action, don't forget to like, to share and subscribe, and hit down in the comments with your contribution. And now enough of the talk and the hype and the preview. Let's get onto the tail of the tape, starting with, well, these 2 share a very unique history. I mean, this is not the first time that they've shared a pitch before. They have shared a pitch, most famously in the qualifiers for 2002, where Senegal actually progressed to the Cup of Nations in Mali 2002 and the subsequent World Cup of that year. And we're in a group with Morocco, and it was eventually they who were able to get over the line and get to the World Cup and the Cup of Nations. I mean, in those days, because the World Cup and the Cup of Nations was played at the same time, in those days you were qualifying for both tournaments, World Cup and Cup of Nations. So that's a very interesting stat. But one thing that's a little bit more interesting is this is a completely brand new fixture in the finals of the Africa Cup of Nations. These 2 have never played each other at the final tournament of the Cup of Nations, ever, in their entire history. Whether it be in the group stage, the knockout stage, or the final itself, these 2 have never played each other at the tournament. And here we are, their first match, and it's the big one, the final. For Senegal, of course, this will be their 4th final, 1 success and 2 defeats. While for Morocco, as much as they're one-time winners, this is only their 2nd finale at the Cup of Nations, as the Cup of Nations final being a once-off game of football. Their only one appearance was in 2004 against Tunisia. They lost. They were the visiting team to the host nation. Now they get to play host on final day. Very, very interesting setup. And now let's get to one of the contenders. In the green corner, Senegal, of course, started this campaign in Group C. They were drawn with Benin, DR Congo, and Botswana, and got to the group stage quite comfortably. They defeated Botswana 3-0, really laying down a marker with a fantastic performance and how they would intend to go on. They did, though, hit a snag against the Leopards of DR Congo, which was you could say a little bit more expected, considering that they were going to be the tougher team in this group, and if their World Cup games or anything to go by, it was always going to be one of those games. They though did clean up their act by defeating Benin 3-0 and eventually securing, I mean, they're already qualified by then, but instead secured top spot, which meant they would stay in Tangier, where they played all of their group games in the competition heading into the last 16. In fact, that match would also have a very influential occurrence, as Kalidou Koulibaly on his 100th game would receive a red card and would miss the the first knockout game. He wasn't missed that much though. Well, he was missed early on, but he wasn't missed that much in the end, as Senegal came back from 1-0 down to defeat Sudan, a very brave and game Sudan 3-1. They then would be very much tested. They would have a West African derby against Mali, a game that was very tight. It was decided by a moment, a very bad moment for Mali, but I mean, Senegal capitalized and would eventually win the game 1-0, and would win the game essentially dominating the Malians, not necessarily scoring a lot of goals, but they definitely had the better resources and were the most deserved winners of that game. And the semi-final, they then took on Egypt in a rematch of the 2021 final, and just as they did against Mali, dominated a lot of the play, dominated the possession, just couldn't break Egypt open. It needed something special, and that something special came from their talisman Sadio Mane for 1-0, and would see Senegal to a 4th Cup of Nations final. This is a team that have a array of stars up front. I mean, like I said, it's a great marriage of old and new. There are Senegalese players there who will be playing their 3rd Cup of Nations final. There will be guys who will go back as far as 2019, or survivors of 2019, the likes of Idrissa Gueye, Sadio Mane. Those guys are survivors of the 2019 final. That means that this will be their 3rd Cup of Nations final. They will know, the one strength they will have is they will know how to win, and even to an extent how to lose a Cup of Nations final. So almost not much of the game will really shock or surprise them. The only thing that's going to be unique is that they're essentially going to be the away team in the final, because they're playing it in the host nation. So it's going to be a bit of a unique experience, but in terms of the stature of the match itself, their experience will definitely be a huge advantage for them. Also will be the youth. Senegal have a young, strapling team on them. Players who are very young, making their impact, like the likes of Ibrahim Mbaye, 18 years old, and already making a strapling impact in this competition. And not only that, they're a young team that are hungry, a young team that's also very successful at their level. And this is the Senegal team that has been a consequence of the success they had. I mean, remember when Senegal won the Cup of Nations finally in 2022, it marked a bit of a golden age in Senegalese football. I mean, they were champions of Africa at U17, at U20 level, and even in the Nations Championship. So this is a Senegalese team bred of winners. These guys are winners and know what it takes to win these competitions and win these finals, even at youth level. So they've grown up as winners, and they've come to the Cup of Nations, and you can clearly just see the quality of the Senegalese side, and also their attacking brilliance as well. I mean, the likes of Nicholas Jackson, who catches a bit of flack, but he's been able to lock in this competition and get a lot of goals. This likes of Pape Gueye as well. His performance against Sudan in the last 16 was very good as well. And Iliman Ndiaye, the Everton star who got the winning goal in the last 8, also as well can be a big threat. Another thing as well could be the Sadio Mane factor. As you know, Sadio Mane, after the semi-final, dropped a bombshell that the Cup of Nations final will be his final game at the competition for Senegal, and that possibly he could be hinting at international retirement. Most likely he'll be at the World Cup, but you know, the Cup of Nations final will be the start of the Sadio Mane farewell tour, and probably is the date date of the Sadio Mane farewell tour. And for such an emblematic player, for such a player who's been such a star for Senegal, like I'd mentioned in previous videos, he was the one who really I'm not going to say really by himself, but he was one of those guys who was able to lift Senegal from that really dark period post 2002, that insane hangover from the post 2002 generation and the mid 2000s, where they missed World Cups and Cup of Nations, in the mid 2010s, which is a very, very grim time for Senegalese football. Sadio Mane has done a phenomenal job and has been the face of that Senegal team. Don't get me wrong, a lot of great players have also come and gone in the national setup in Sadio's time, but Sadio has become the face of some of Senegal, this new Senegal team's most iconic moments, and has been able to fulfill the potential that Senegal kind of always had, especially after that 2002 generation. They always had potential that they were going to achieve great things, but just never could go over the line. Now they have, and now for him to bow out in this national team is going to be a huge miss. But I think that maybe the Senegalese players, the squad, everyone else, they're not necessarily going to want to win the final for him. I mean, that's not going to be the main objective, but somewhere in the coaching staff, somewhere you can't really deny that there's somewhere that they don't just want to win the Cup of Nations for themselves, for their country, but they want to give Sadio Mane a great farewell. They want to give that one defining moment in what has now been declared the Sadio Mane farewell tour. And if for him to win the Cup of Nations, the second Cup of Nations winners medal, that puts him in a very, very select group of two-time Cup of Nations winners, and now puts him in the table of African greats, and even now puts him in GOAT conversations. Now he can really sit in that table of GOATs of African football. And now with two Cup of Nations winners medals, his legacy, not just in Senegal, but his legacy now in African football, is going to be absolutely insane. And that's probably what he's going to be playing for. That's probably one of the great things he's going to be playing for come final day for Senegal. My big concern will be the suspensions. Kalidou Koulibaly is, of course, captain, leader of men. And for me, losing Koulibaly, the captain, losing Koulibaly in some sense isn't necessarily a bad thing, because Senegal already have enough great leaders and experienced players to replace him, the likes of Sadio Mane, of course, and Idrissa Gueye. But the problem with losing Kalidou Koulibaly, even if it's not in defense, it could be in defense, because I mean, you'll then have to sub in someone who really wasn't going to be playing, like the likes of my educated guess, Abdoulaye Seck, who was a pretty good replacement when he did play. But not just that, but for someone like Koulibaly, who's an emblematic figure, a leader of men, a strong, sturdy captain, to not play the final with him is going to be a bit of a concern. He's going to be a big miss, because now the Senegalese defense is going to be a little bit raw. They're going to be a little bit untested. I'm not saying untested, but they're definitely going to be a little bit raw and a little bit unorthodox. And it's going to be coming down to a lot of the time how the Senegal team was going to handle missing such a big player like K2, such an emblematic player on the pitch. Now, how are they going to deal with that? Habib Diallo as well is also going to be a pretty bad miss, and it's going to be very interesting now. It's going to be a huge test of depth for Pape Thiaw on how he's going to plug those holes come final day. How is he going to be able to plug those holes to be able to guide Senegal over the line? Yes, they have a great attack, but are they going to be solid enough at the back, especially with Morocco and the threat that they can pose? Will they be able to be solid enough in the back? And will the squad emotionally be able to handle? They would have, especially considering the semi-final and the final have been a couple of days. Will they be able to handle the emotion of not having a player like Kalidou Koulibaly? Will they have the discipline? And knowing games like these, you need the discipline. Will they have the discipline? Will they have that wherewithal, knowing that they don't have the emblematic captain on them, to be able to make the right decisions and to carry on? And that will be the big test that Senegal are going to have, and the big question that Senegal are going to have to answer on final day. It's a very, very interesting dilemma that Pape Thiaw finds himself in on the day of the game. For Senegal, my star player, or definitely my man to watch, I mean, it's I've already mentioned him, and I'm just gonna mention him just for the sake of the narrative. Sadio Mane. I have to talk about him. He's my man to watch for Senegal. And like I mentioned, for him, this is the beginning of the farewell tour. Having confirmed that he will be retiring from the national setup after this tournament. Like I said, this is all about legacy. This will be all about legacy for Sadio Mane. He heads into this tournament now. If he wins the Cup of Nations, if he finally brings home that second Cup of Nations title, having a second Cup of Nations winners medal will put him in a very select group of AFCON greats, the likes of Rigobert Song and Samuel Eto'o and some of the great legends of Egypt who were part of the three-peats. He now gets to join that elite group of two-time Cup of Nations winners, and the things that will do for his legacy will be absolutely amazing. You could say he's already the greatest player in Senegal's history, already on the pitch, but if he can bring home a second Cup of Nations, he will be undoubtedly the greatest player Senegal has ever produced, without a doubt at this point. But now he's going to be able to put himself in conversations of other greats, the likes of an Abu Trika, the likes of a Rigobert Song or Samuel Eto'o. He's going to be in those conversations now, and that will do so much for his legacy, and that's probably going to be one of the reasons why he's going to want to win this final. And like I mentioned earlier, for the rest of the squad, yes, they'll all want to win the Cup of Nations for themselves, for their country, and for all that other stuff, but you just can't help that they're gonna want to do it for Sadio, and that could be the push the emotional sort of push that could give them over the line on final day. So he's gonna be my man to watch, is Sadio Mane. I mean, and he scored in the semi-final. He hasn't played a starring role, but he hasn't necessarily needed to. I mean, everyone has shone around him. Everyone in his squad has shone around him and has turned up as well. So much so that Sadio hasn't necessarily been a passenger, but he hasn't necessarily been on the end of big moments. But he hasn't necessarily needed to be at the end of those big moments. So who knows? Maybe Sadio's big individual defining moment could be coming at the biggest game of all. And who knows, it could be at that moment that the moment comes for Sadio Mane. That is my wrap of, I think everything's going to be in the green corner. And now fighting out of the red corner, there's a team that is hoping to end a long, long wait. For Morocco, the Cup of Nations has been quite the journey. I mean, yes, they started on opening day. They defeated Comoros 2-0. But then the snag really came against Mali, where for them the competition truly began. The first sort of roadblock where they drew 1-1. They conceded a penalty. They took a lead through Brahim Diaz, but then were pinned back by a Sinayoko penalty. They would then finish off Zambia quite convincingly 2-0. Winning the group would then take them to the last 16, where they took on Tanzania and they put on a pretty suspicious 1-0 victory. I mean, they won, which is what you need to do, knockout football, but they could have been a lot better, but they've grown as the pressure has grown. I mean, Morocco, for all their deficiencies, Morocco have definitely turned up when it matters most. In the quarterfinal, they soundly defeated a pretty game Cameroon, and you could say their biggest performance was the semi-final against Nigeria, where they faced probably one of the most potent attacks, probably the most potent attack at the tournament. And not only did they keep them quiet, but they outchanced them. They were enterprising, and you could say, if this was, and I'd use the boxing analogy, I'll use the boxing analogy more properly. I mean, like I said, I'm a movie buff, and it's like, if you've ever watched the movie Creed, nowadays, the 2015 movie Creed, it's like, and spoilers for this if you've not seen the movie, it was like watching Creed versus Conlon minus the knockdowns. We don't get the knockdown in the 11th, and we don't get the knockdown in the 12th. That was what the game was like. and Morocco were able to outchance Nigeria, were able to sort of get close to them, just unable to land the knockout blow. But in the big moments, like penalties, the big hero stepped up. Yassine Bono, who has garnered a reputation for being a hero for Morocco and in the past Sevilla, and now his club Al Hilal. He's become a bit of a penalty hero. He did it again. He was on it again, and it was his hand that would take Morocco to a first Cup of Nations final. First since 2004, their only second ever appearance in the tournament decider. Their one and only was in 2004. They were the visitors to Tunisia, who were also playing a home final. They sadly were beaten 2-1 in Tunis. And for those who are wondering, although despite Morocco being winners in 1976, when they won the Cup of Nations, it was a round-robin tournament and didn't have a once-off elimination final like we do now. So, unfortunately, Morocco, although our one-time winners, have never actually won a Cup of Nations final. Very interesting dynamic. It's a Morocco team that have grown stronger over time. I mean, I think one of the big concerns for this Morocco team we all had was they're not battle tested. They've not faced the best of the best. They're not battle tested, and when the pressure gets on, you fear they're gonna crack. And the thing with this Morocco team is they are starting to evolve. They're starting to play better. They are starting to sort of match teams better now. Teams that we all thought, and I'm guilty of this, we all thought that Morocco were going to crack against. Morocco have stood firm. And they've been able to stand firm against those sides. They've been able to create chances and create goals for those guys and create massive moments for those guys. They're a team that just seems to be getting better and better, and that's what you need in tournament football. You need to you're not always going to start flaming hot in the competition. You're not always going to be absolutely flaming hot. At times you're going to start a little bit cold, but they've gone on and on and on as the tournament has gone on, and they've gone on in confidence as well. I mean, not just the quarterfinal win over Cameroon, which was their best sort of performance in terms of open play, but now that they've gotten more confidence, having beaten a very game Nigeria team. Not only have they beaten them, but kept the likes of Osimhen and Lookman quiet, and then winning on penalties will give them the ultimate sort of confidence. My strength, the strength I feel Morocco will have in the final will be, of course, the obvious will be home support. I mean, they're literally playing the final in their stadium, in front of their fans, in their country. I mean, it's the biggest home game Morocco have ever played, without a shadow of a doubt. And another sort of strength will be, again, the growth of confidence. This is a Morocco team that didn't start the tournament very well, very jittery, had a lot of critics, but now here they are in the final, having knocked out a lot of good teams along the way, having eliminated a lot of good sides along the way, growing in confidence. They still have a few deficiencies here and there, but they've definitely grown as the tournament has gone on. The country has grown around them as well, and there's going to be this immense sense of confidence now that it could be their time. And if you saw some of the scenes against Nigeria, they were incredibly you could just see just how much it meant to the players, how much it meant to the fans to finally be in this final of the Cup of Nations. My weakness for Morocco, I fear my weakness for Morocco, it could be all too much. This could be all too much. I mean, if you saw some of the reactions to the semi-final, I mean, the players being in absolute tears at the end of it. I mean, I fear that this team has hit an emotional peak, and that the pressure that they could have is all crushing down. Remember, one of the big things of Morocco has been the pressure. Not just the pressure of the home fans, but the internal pressure of not just the fans, but the internal pressure of the likes of their government, the king, Fawzi Lekia, the Royal Moroccan Football President, and not just the pressure, the internal pressure, but the external, I'll say, negative pressure of everyone else in Africa. if you look at Morocco, everything is built to this moment. All of the infrastructure, all of the development of their football, all of the success that their youth and, should we say, lesser teams have achieved in football, their achievements of the senior team, the development and the evolution of the senior setup, everything that Morocco has done, everything good and bad that Morocco has done, has led to this moment, this one defining goal: finally win the Africa Cup of Nations and end this 49, now pushing 50-year wait. And I fear the pressure from the public, the pressure from the fans, the pressure on themselves, the pressure on the media, and to an extent the pressure from everyone else, and the expectations might be a weight just too great to bear. And I feel that heading into the final against a very good Senegal side, will they be able to handle that pressure? I mean, the best way I could describe it would be like Bayern Munich in 2012 when they played that home Champions League final against Chelsea. You really felt for Bayern, as much as essentially they were playing a final home, a home final. You knew there was going to be that pressure of winning the big one at home in front of your fans, that everything you've built, everything you've accumulated, everything you've anticipated has come down to this moment, and the pressure just got too great to bear. I fear for Morocco it just could be the same. And the worst part is we've seen shades of this. The women's team, the Morocco will now be hosting, unfortunately, a third straight Women's Africa Cup of Nations. In the previous two tournaments of the Women's Cup of Nations, Morocco made the final and lost both times to South Africa, and they just threw away a 2-0 lead and lost to the Super Falcons of Nigeria. That is the negative aspects of pressure, and I fear for Wale Regragui, for Achraf Hakimi, for a lot of those star guys, the pressure of this match, will it be too much? Can Morocco handle the insane pressure this match is going to bring? This moment is going to bring, and knowing that this is arguably their best chance to win the Cup of Nations, because if they don't win it now, when are they going to win it? I think that's going to be the question. That's a feeling Moroccans don't want to have. That's a question Moroccans never want to have. Now, if we do not win it here, when are we going to win it? Where are we going to win it? Are we ever going to win the Cup of Nations? And that will be all put to bed on final day, on Sunday. And that will be, in my point of view, the sort of big weakness or threats that I feel Morocco could have. The star player, I would definitely say he's definitely a nominee, arguably for player of the tournament, Brahim Diaz. 5 goals in a row in the competition. He scored in all the big moments for Morocco. He's been sort of the deadline breaker, the game breaker Morocco have needed. A lot of the tense, tight moments where Morocco needed a goal or needed a moment, Brahim Diaz was always in the right place at the right time, and it's great for him. You know, he hasn't really set the world alight at Real Madrid. He's been, and with the volatile sort of nature that's been going on in the Spanish capital, the Cup of Nations has been a great distraction for him. And I mean, scoring 5 goals in a row, didn't score in the semi-final, but you know, thankfully at the end he didn't need to. He's definitely going to be up for the big one, and he's definitely going to be a man to watch for Senegal, and definitely going to be a man to watch of can he score the big one. And arguably, if he does score, I think he could be in for Golden Boot, but he might, and if he scores and maybe if Morocco win, who knows, he could have a very legit shot for Golden Ball and for tournament MVP. Who knows? I mean, it's a very, very unique experience for him. He's definitely been Morocco's best player at the tournament, and he's definitely going to be the one to watch for the Atlas Lions. So how I feel this match is going to go. Now, I'm not going to predict the actual results. Sorry. Sorry. If you got this far and were thinking, yeah, this is the time where he puts his head on the block, no. If you know me long enough, I don't predict finals. I don't predict finals. I will predict, though, how I feel the match will go, or how I feel the match can go. For the big thing I feel for Morocco will be, can they weather the Senegal attack? They'll definitely have the ability to. I mean, Mazraoui was very solid against Nigeria, was able to keep Nigeria very quiet, and as well were able to create a lot of opportunities. Well, just weren't able to put them away. I feel that it'll be one of the big things for Morocco. I feel that that's where I feel they will hurt Senegal, and maybe even, I don't think they'll really play conservative. I don't think Morocco will play conservative. Again, with the amount of pressure and the unique and insane pressure of the match, I don't think Morocco are really going to sit back. I don't think they're going to sit back and talk the pressure. They're sure as hell not going to play this game. They're not going to play this game the way Egypt played. But definitely I feel Morocco will have pace on the wing. The likes of Hakimi as well be hoping to have some pace and on the wing and be able to take a bit of the wing play. And will hopefully be able to feed the likes of whoever's up front, El Kabi, Diaz, En-Nesyri. They'll be hoping to feed those guys as well. That's how I feel Morocco can hurt Senegal, and definitely they'll be hoping to keep them quiet. And they'll know that if we can keep a very talented attack like Nigeria quiet, then I feel the Senegalese team, they'll definitely count themselves against the Senegal team. But and I did say in the semi-final preview, I did say you have not played a team like Nigeria yet. Now they have, and they've survived. So they'll definitely have the confidence that they feel that they can keep Senegal at arm's length and then be able to create opportunities of their own. I don't think Morocco, being conservative is probably the safe way to play the game, but I don't think with the amount of pressure, with the amount of fanfare that Senegal are going to play the game at the back. They're not going to play the game conservative and sort of hope to catch Senegal on the break, but I definitely feel that they will be a bit on the back foot. They'll have to cede a little bit of territory, a little bit of ball possession, but I definitely feel Regragui would have a plan, or hopefully will have a plan, to be able to have Morocco some time on the ball against Senegal in this final, that it doesn't look like they're sort of at the back. It's how can they deal with Senegal's attack, and how can they deal with that pressure, the mental edge of that pressure of playing the final this way. For Senegal, they will definitely be hoping, can we get going? They would have looked at Nigeria and saw as good as attacking team Nigeria were, Nigeria just couldn't really get going. I mean, they did spring passes together, but just couldn't find that killer ball. And they'll definitely be hoping against the Morocco that they will have found that killer ball. Can they find those killer passes, and can they be able to sort of manufacture their moments, or manufacture the moment for them? There will definitely be that will definitely be the hope for them. That's how I feel they'll definitely play the game. I feel that they could get more possession, considering just how Senegal play. They could off the jump get more possession. It's not going to be 70% possession. I don't think it will ever be that way, but they'll definitely feel like the more they have possession, the more they'll feel they'll settle down, and the more they'll feel they'll want to play their own way. The moment they feel they can get going and play their own way, the more they'll be confident, and the more it's going to be a problem for Morocco. So Senegal will definitely be hoping to keep going, but will also hope to alleviate as much pressure off the defense as possible. They know without Kalidou Koulibaly, that is going to be a huge hole at the back. And again, my educated guess is Abdoulaye Seck. I might even be wrong, but they'll be hoping to do not expose the defense as much as possible. Keep the defense protected as much as possible, because knowing they're going to be missing someone like Abdoulaye Seck, they're missing someone, like Kalidou Koulibaly, knowing that they're going to be missing a player like him, such an emblematic figure like him, they will be hoping to, at the very least, keep the defense as compact as possible, not expose the defense as much as possible, and try to protect the defender, or who least his replacement, as much as possible, so that they are not sort of caught napping by this Moroccan attack. That will definitely be the game plan for Senegal. How I feel the game plan will be for Senegal to attack. Don't be too intimidated. Try to sort of play on the crowd. They know the crowd is going to be white hot. They know that. And I feel like for Senegal, if they can sort of settle down the first 10-20 minutes, which is not really going to be possible. It's going to be very, very difficult, not impossible, but very, very difficult. If they can settle down, knock the ball around, and I feel that they're going to be all right. That's how I feel the game will go. The game can go a million and one other ways. I mean, we live in infinite timeline. There's infinite timelines, parallel timelines where the game could go completely different. So that's how I feel the game will go. Again, I'm not going to predict the result. I don't predict cup final results. Sorry. So yeah, that's how I feel the game will go. And that's it. That is the end of this video. What are your predictions for the final? Where are you going to be watching the final? Who you be supporting in the final? What is your result? There, just sound off in the comments. And yet again, thank you for sticking by and sticking to the end of this video. You're an absolute warrior if you've done so. And hopefully after all the stress, after everything, we hope now just sit back and enjoy the game. Sit back, enjoy the game, and hopefully we get served an absolute classic. Let's pray it doesn't go to penalties. This tournament deserves better. And now let's just sit back, relax, and enjoy the end to what has been a pretty fantastic tournament. Of course, if you guys are loving the content, don't forget to like, to share, and subscribe, and all the other amazing stuff. And I will catch you again on the flip side. It's been your boy, the Football Otaku, and never forget, real football always wins. See you. Bye-bye.